Okay, so first things first, I'm going to grab the requirements from week 4. I'm just going to copy this over to a Google document. And this is hopefully going to keep me on task, so I know exactly what it is I need to get done. So I've got 2 links on Blackboard here. One to some free audio sources at jamendo.com, and I've got some videos that you can download for free from Videvo. I'm just going to open those 2 links and have them ready to go. I've already logged in. Let me just log in again to Jamendo, and I'm looking specifically at Jamendo Music. And what I need you to do here is to spend some time. I'm not going to take too much time, but I need you to spend some time finding something that you can work with that fits the mood and the theme of what it is you're trying to produce. I'm going to just go for some techno music. And you don't have to use this specific category. You could use anything you want. But one thing I would strongly encourage you to avoid is any songs that have lyrics. Try to avoid singing because the lyrics tend to change the story. I know when I go into the techno space that I usually find music that doesn't have lyrics. No, thank you. No, thank you. No, thank you. Okay, I'm not going to spend any more time trying to find the perfect song, but you can take a little bit more time to do that. I do need to know that this is under a Creative Commons license. That's very important to me. And the other thing I want you all to do is every time you grab an asset, whether it's video or audio, just grab the name of the artist and include that in your project. So I'm just keeping on my Google Documents here. My soundtrack is actually this person here. And then eventually I'll have video credits as well. So I'm just maintaining a Google document back here and following these instructions. Discover a song that you enjoy, create an account there and download your song. Okay, I can do that. So it's a free download. It's a Creative Commons license, so I'm allowed to do this. And I can see that that's jumped down here onto my computer, which is awesome. Okay, so that's done with that one. And then I've got Videvo. Using the category that you find interesting. Okay, I've got to find an interesting category. Visit Videvo and download a minimum of 5 videos. So this is actually done. And I always forget how to do this. So I'm just going to, how do I strike through? Apple Shift X. So that's done. This is keeping me organized. I'm meeting the specs of my boss. And then using the category that you find interesting, download a minimum of 5 videos from one, and he put it in bold, one category. Okay. So the theme of this is going to be energy, and I like to have, I want to get some images of some animals. So I'm going to go to all videos. And there's categories all along the top, so we can pick one of these. I'm going to pick animals and just start downloading some stuff. Now, what's nice about Videvo is it does show you what the resolution is and the duration. So there's a cool shot here. I like this one of a cat eye macro. Click on that and download that one. And then I'm just going to do this as fast as I can. So I'm going to think of a story in my mind right now. I've got this high energy, and I'm going to make the cat look like it's hunting creatures, because that's a really interesting eye of a cat. Some bunnies. He's hunting some bunnies. I'm going to grab my eating together. Supercharge my creativity. Not now. We got some bunnies. What else do we want to hunt here? A birdie. Grab that one. And then we're going to make this funny. Is he hunting monkey? Sure. And the whole time I'm watching very carefully that the resolution's appropriate. So I don't want this to be SD, standard definition, which is 720. I want it to be 1920 by 1080. So free download. I do want to see a moment where the resolution is higher than that. So I'm just going to mouse around until I see 4K, because there are high resolution shots. So, oh, what's the last creature he's going to be trying to hunt? A dog. Funny. So 4K. Interesting. So one word of caution. When you're getting up into this resolution, and that's actually higher than that 3860 that we saw earlier. So when you start downloading footage of this resolution, it's going to be very big on your hard drive. So we can get the original DCI. There we go. So the original DCI footage right off the camera was 4096, but 4K true, there's the 3840, not 3860, but the 3840 we saw earlier. So I'm going to grab that just so that it's the same aspect ratio. Is that a premium download, it said? Or did I get it? Show in Finder. It's my monkeys. So that's a premium download, the 4K? Yes. Let's pay to play. Anyway, I can just grab the HD. That's fine. Oh no, this footage itself is premium download. Wait a minute. 4K. Yeah. So that's not going to work for me. Is there another 4K clip in here? Puppies. Let's grab some puppies. Your premium download? Cows. Interesting. Yesterday I was able to download some 4K footage. Yeah, actually it says right on it, premium. I should be paying more closer attention. Free. There's a 4. Okay, so the last thing he's hunting is a whale. Somebody has a question. That's another place you can definitely go to get some videos for sure. Absolutely. All right. So I'm going to grab this whale here because it's free. There we go. Just so that I have some 4K footage. Cool. Now, I've done my diligence. I'm going to go into here, strike that through. And now this is where I need you to be very pragmatic and start thinking about file organization from a very high critical level. So it says create a folder on the computer. You could put this up on your desktop and then try to move it later, but something I would like to do If you're working on Splashtop, then yeah, definitely work on the desktop, and then you could put it up on Google Drive when you're done. But one thing I like to do is I'll just maintain on the root of my hard drive a folder, and I've just got a folder here called Course Videos. And I'm going to be of my assignment. So I'm just going to grab that, copy it, and I'm going to set up a new folder here and just call it what it is. Now what's very important is I'm going to make sure that I keep every name that I create for my files and folders camel cased. And that means that the first word has lowercase, and then every subsequent word in the file name after that is going to have uppercase and no spaces. We could use underscores, and from time to time that's nice, but I try to avoid them. I try to avoid special characters at all for a lot of reasons. Why is my computer complaining? There might have been a trailing weird something something. Try that again. There we go. There was something trailing at the end when I copied it off of that web page. So camel casing, lowercase, first word, uppercase, uppercase, all good. So inside of there, I need to produce a new folder according to the specifications. I'll double check them. What does my boss want me to do? Sound and footage. Okay. So here, this new folder is going to be called sound. This one's going to be called footage. And I need a place for my project to live. So does my boss have any requirements for that? All right, so these, I need to put the soundtrack file into the audio folder and the videos into the footage folder. All right. So my downloads, thankfully, organize themselves quite nicely here. So I'm going to go into footage. On a Mac, I can pop open my previous downloads and just drag stuff off of my previous downloads, because my downloads folder is a mess. And then there's my techno song. I'm going to go back into my sounds folder and put that there. Okay, now we get into the files themselves, and we need to rename them all. So this one is going to be my soundtrack. Once again, camel cased, all lowercase in the first word, no spaces. And my videos, I'm going to start using underscores because I would like to have these each numbered. And you'll see why in a moment why that's valuable. So this one here is going to be my featured image. I'm going to keep cutting back to the cat's eye. So it's going to be number 1. And I'm going to give it a name that's more meaningful. Cat. This one here is my monkeys. I'm going to call this one 2 underscore monkeys. This is my bird. So 3 underscore bird. This one is my whales. And this one, I'm just going to pretend I didn't rename, and I'm going to make a tragic mistake. The mistake that most people are going to make throughout the semester. And the reason why I'm giving it this grotesque name is quite often when we find a file on the internet, it might have this nonsensical, really long, ridiculous name. And even when we pull them in off our cameras, they tend to have goofy file names like that. Okay, so did I do my job? Create a folder, put the soundtrack. Okay, I did that. Done. This one here, immediately rename them. Cool. I've done that. Nice. create a folder where your project will live, like a subfolder in the root drive called, that's cool. And this one is going to be my in class 1 thematic visual storytelling. So I'm just going to copy this right off of my specifications document, go back into here, and in my thematic visual storytelling directory, I'm going to create a new folder. I'm just going to paste in what element wants in class 1 thematic visual storytelling. There's no spaces. Everything is camel cased. Cool. And this is where my project is going to live. So this, my videos live in here. My sounds live in here. And my project from Premiere is going to live in this folder. Cool. Double check. Cool. Done. Now we get into Premiere. We've got this new folder we created when we create a new project. Now Premiere, when you first open it up, might seem a little bit overwhelming with its initial screen. And that's fine. When we set up a new project, there's lots of options here. Well, we got to give the project a name. Oh, I think I still have it on my clipboard. That's a good name for my file. But I do want to make sure it's camel cased. So that's a good name for my project. And where is it going to live? Now we have to search around our hard drive to focus in on where that Premiere file is going to go. So I need to keep it in here. And all I have to do is highlight that directory, that folder, and hit choose. So now Premiere knows to store all of its related data inside of that specific folder. When we start to edit, we're going to be working in time code. We're not in film, so we don't have feet. If it's not an animation, so we don't have to think in frames, we'll use the time code. All of our audio will be shown as samples, not seconds. And if we were capturing video from an outside source, we could opt to use HDV, but we're not doing that. We're going to ingest all of our footage just by copying it directly by import. Then there's this big old long list of scratch disks, and this is where Premiere is going to do a lot of work behind the scenes for us. We don't even see it doing it, but when we capture video or audio, like where does it go? It'll use the folder that we defined earlier, which is nice. And it shows us how much room we have left on our drives. If it's doing previews, if it's rendering something for us, like a visual effect or text or something like that, it's going to put those previews into these folders. It will auto-generate. But if we wanted to go elsewhere, like an external hard drive or a network drive, we could choose something else for each one of these independently, which would be good if you were working in a team. But this by default, same as project all the way down, is perfect. Ingest settings, we don't need to worry about this, but we can arguably make a copy of every file, or this is neat, we could transcode the video from one format to another if we were, say, wanting to work in a different file format. But we're going to turn that off for now. So yeah, by default, pretty easy. Choose a location, give it a really, really good name, make sure that name is camel cased, and then, yeah, hit OK. And for the first time when you open up the tool, it should be in this mode here. Learning should be highlighted in the top, and you have tons of tutorials right inside of Premiere to mess around with. One thing that I like to point out, currently this box on the left-hand side where Learn is highlighted blue. These are referred to as panels or panes, sometimes I'll call them. And when you've clicked on them, you will see they have this blue box that highlights them. And in the world of computers, we call that focus. So this is a pane or a panel that's currently in focus right now. I'm working in the source panel or the program panel, and Premiere does a great job of showing us what we're working on. So the key that's right below the escape key, it looks like a little apostrophe or a tilde, a little squiggly line underneath the escape key. If you tap that button, whatever panel you have highlighted will get big and fill the screen or get small, which is very powerful. If you want to look at one thing in particular, just tap the button underneath the escape key and it will get big and fill the screen. Now, across the top, we have all these different modes. And when we change modes, really all it's doing is reorganizing the panels and sometimes exposing new ones. A lot of the time I work specifically here in the editing mode. If I'm going into the colorization space, I can highlight that and things move around. Visual effects, sound, if I'm editing all my audio, graphics, and there's a lot of title effects in here that are built into the software, which is really nice. But today, I want to focus on just assembly and editing. So if I go to assembly mode, really this is where we just drag and drop files in to get ourselves going. So I'm going to head back over to my folder here. And go into my directory. And it's really nice because I can just grab my footage folder and drag that entire folder in like so. It takes a moment because all of the video footage is being analyzed for its duration and its scale and what different formats it's compressed as. But yeah, it brings it in as a nice folder like so. But if you happen to just bring in an individual file and later on you want to get yourself organized by making your own folders, just be mindful that Premiere doesn't call them folders. They harken back to the good old days when film reels were in a bin. So I create a new bin and I'm going to call this my sound. And then I just sort of put my soundtrack inside that folder like so. Cool. And I could arguably just start working on my video. Now, a common mistake that people make is they'll just grab a video and drag it in like so, and just to get started. The problem with that is when you drag and drop into this panel down here, which is known as your timeline, it creates a new sequence using the metadata from the file that created it. So you'll notice that this sequence that just got generated is the same frames per second, duration, etc., as the file that I just dragged down. And that's not the way I personally like to do it because I know that this is going to YouTube. So I would much rather create my own sequence where I'm going to do editing down here in the timeline. So I'm going to hop over into editing mode now. I've assembled my project. I'm going to go into editing. You'll notice that the project pane has moved in down here. I just simply right click. I get this menu pop up. I'm going to set up a new item called a sequence. And sequences are where we create all of our different edits. And we can create multiple sequences and then merge all those sequences later as a master cut. But right now we're just going to focus on one sequence. And then when we click on that, we see this overwhelming list of stuff, and it's kind of it's overwhelming. You know, what is it we're trying to output our footage as? I like to personally think about where this is going to eventually go. And it's going to go to YouTube, and YouTube has got very custom settings. How many frames per second is YouTube? it's 30. You can search online for the specifics of a website like YouTube or Vimeo to find out exactly what their requirements are. Here's that frame size, and there's that ratio I brought up earlier, 16 by 9. We're going to edit in 1920 by 1080, so you can punch those numbers in if they're not already populated. And there's that square pixel. So back in the good old days, NTSC television had a different aspect ratio, but pixels nowadays are square. So I'm going to choose that. Fields, we're going to talk about that next week. Sometimes this is set to upper or lower. We have no fields. All of our pixels are on at the same time. So we are actually 1080p. If you think about seeing that term used to describe a television set, for example, that means that the television has progressive scan. And most of our digital output today is always progressive. Sample rate, we get into this deeper in the semester, by default 44.1, and we're going to use audio samples for our display. We're going to render things out in maximum bit depth and maximum render quality, but if your computer's slow, you can turn these off for better performance. But very important is giving this thing a name, and I'm going to call this my master, and that's going to be exported as that when I've finished my project. Cool. So what is this all about? When I hit OK, I should see down here now the word master in this panel. And this is my timeline. This is where I do the majority of my cutting, my editing. Up here, I have a box that is my program. This is what's showing me what's happening in my timeline. And then over here, I've got source. Now this is if I just want to preview something, either a sound or a video. If I double click on it here, like cat, it will open up in my source, and I get some interesting information here. Like this is 19 seconds and 03. What does that 03 stand for? These are seconds, these are minutes, these are hours. But what does this mean? 03. A lot of people think it's like hundredths of a second or tenths of a second. That's not the case. It's actually frames. You have to think back. In our sequence, and we can always change our sequence properties here by right-clicking. I'm going to find where it says sequence settings. We set our time base to 30 FPS, 30 frames per second. So when we look at our time base here, this is the number of frames before a second goes by. I'll show you what I mean. Now that I've established my timeline, I'm going to take the cat footage, which is the first image I want to see, and drag that out onto my V1 layer. It's going to nag me. This clip does not match the sequence settings. Do I want to change them? No. Why? Because I just spent some time defining the sequence to be 1920 by 1080, 30 frames per second, square pixels. So don't change it. Keep those settings. Perfect. Now I can see up here my playhead, this blue line here, is sitting at 0. I'm at the very beginning of my project. I can use my arrow keys to nudge around. I'm pressing the right arrow key. But watch what happens when it gets to 28, 29, 31 second. It's counting frames. That final integer value represents frames. So when we get up to 29 again, it will flip the next second over to 3. And that's important to note. When you're thinking about, as Walter Murch had pointed out as his AE's responsibility, is thinking about the decimal points. Now when you're cutting or editing, there's a lot of different ways to approach it. You can use the razor tool. and you can just slice up footage this way, click, and then with your arrow, you can grab something you've cut and you can move it around, like so. Or you can drag your playhead to specific moments, and you could say maybe right at 14 seconds for some reason. At 14 seconds, I want something to happen, and press return. It will jump the playhead to that moment in time, and as long as this little magnet is turned on, then your clips will snap. Now I had to switch back to this tool here, the selection tool, to highlight that clip, and then I can drag it over and you'll watch it will snap perfectly to 14 seconds. So now that clip will happen in that event. With snapping on, other things will happen as well. Like if I grab my monkeys, well, what's he hunting? He's hunting birds first. Let's go with the small animals. And I can try to drag it into, oh boy, that's going to overlap with the other, it's going to overwrite it. And if I let go, it overwrote my work. So I could use, I just pressed Command Z, undo. I can drag this to V2. And you see this little arrow pop up from time to time. This little white arrow, that's telling me that it's snapping. So it's perfectly snapped to the previous clip. So in between this time, now if I look at my program, the bird is now in focus, but where's my cat? My cat's underneath here. So I need to show it by dragging this back. And I'm looking for this little bracket with an arrow. That's showing me the direction. I can drag the head and the tail of my footage to snap into place. Now I can see my cat again, and I've just made an edit between those two videos. So the cat's looking around. Now that's way too long. And then it's going to cut to the bird, and then it's going to cut back. Now question, why does the bird look so huge? I bet you it is because if I look at my project, and I'm just going to highlight that pane, I'm going to press the tilde key underneath the escape key to make this real big. My bird footage is actually 4K. There's more picture on the outside of the frame than I can currently see. So I need to highlight that clip, go up to my effects control, and I need to tell this to scale 50%, 50. And that will change the scale of the entire clip. You can even see the little edges in the blue line. So there we go. Now I can see the full 4K in context with my 1920 by 1080. Cool. Very cool. Now you will notice down here, there's a little nugget of audio. And so we've got our video layers here, and we've got our audio layers here. This clip with our bird has sound, and we can see that because the icon beside the file name not only has the purple icon for video, but the green icon for sound. Well, that's going to become frustrating when sounds pop in and out based on these videos, when I also need to consider my soundtrack. So I'm going to grab the soundtrack and put that out into my project. Now, I don't want your project to be any longer than 1 minute. So how do we make it perfectly 1 minute? I'm just going to type it in. I'm going to take my playhead there. 1 minute, 0 seconds, and 0 frames. Press return. Playhead jumps there. I grab the tail of my audio and I'll drag it back. Now everything will snap to everything else. So when I'm finished, say for example I wanted to put my footage over here. I just held down the Option key to copy that. I can click and drag and it will snap. And I know that this will end exactly at 1 minute, which is perfect. Now you might have noticed I just zoomed in and out on the timeline there, which can be difficult at first. But this scroll bar down here that I'm using to go back and forth is also my zoom in tool. So I can grab the little dots on the end of my scroll bar to zoom in and out of my project if need be. You can also use your scroll wheel as long as you're also holding down on a Mac the Option key. I think it's an Alt key on the PC. Ooh, ah, ooh, ah, ah. Now that's what you hear when you scrub the timeline. So you might want to mute stuff from time to time if it's giving you a headache. This clip here with the bird, all of a sudden it's going to have some sound. Now, if I highlight the sound and press delete, oh boy, it just deleted my video too. So I actually have to right-click on that footage, right in the right spot. There it is. And then unlink the two. So that's the option we choose to get rid of. Whoops, I disabled it. So right-click and unlink, and now those two are independent of one another. So I can delete that. Cool. Very cool. So I want to start editing to the music. I don't really necessarily need to hear the music if I can see the music. And I can see down here this lumpy, bumpy line, which is my waveform. Now I want to kind of tease out of this interesting moments, but I can't see it very well. So each one of these tracks, you can actually grab these light gray lines, and you can click and drag and expand so that you can see more. Interesting. So I can see, for example, there's a valley right here where something dramatic is going to happen in the music. So I could drag my playhead. Now I'm snapped. I'm so far zoomed in right now that every time I drag the playhead, I'm snapping a single frame. So just before that interesting moment, at around 2 seconds, I'm going to want to put in a cut. So I'm going to zoom out again. My playhead's not moving. It's still sitting there at 2 seconds and 9 frames. And I'm going to drag my cat back, like so. I'm going to drag my bird back. I might even put it on the same layer as my cat, because I can. Doesn't matter if you do or not. If you want to get through the motion faster of a clip, you can highlight a gap, right-click, and ripple delete, and that will bring everything back. And let's just take a look if that happens at an interesting moment with the sound. It's not that interesting. Not that interesting. I was going to guess just using my eyes. So I'm going to go back to using my ears. So there's that tone that goes bow, bow. So maybe I'll try cutting to that. Now I wonder, can I see it? This is, and you might laugh when I say this, but my friend who's a recording engineer, he calls these files audio sausages because they've been compressed in such a manner that it just looks like this big fat sausage. You don't get to see the interesting moments in the waveform. But I'm guessing, because I was using my ears, that that bon sound is right about there. I can clean it up. And then ripple delete, bring back my bird. And I have to be honest, I really don't like this song, but that's okay. So that's good. It's happening right to the beat. Right about there, I can cut back to the bird or to the cat. So I'm going to shrink this tail down, right click into here, ripple delete. That's cool. There's some tension. That's cool. So one thing I haven't been doing is this. You are going to save all the time. Save. And when I'm happy with what I've got, and I'm going to pretend that I'm finished, I highlight the sequence. That's very important. I'm going to File, Export my media. And built into Premiere, which is super sweet, if I select Format, I got to be careful that I'm on the right one. So Format H.264, that's going to be the container that we use, which is an MP4 file format. That's going to be the compressor that we use. I'm going to, under Video, well, make sure I don't lose it, I'm going to use a preset. And the preset is awesome. It is exactly what I need for my good friend YouTube. There's 720p. Nope, I want to use 1080p full HD. So just to go through that again, pick the right compressor, which is H.264, and then just choose the preset for YouTube, which is awesome. And we'll get into the details of all this stuff later in terms of how to do transcoding and stuff. And what's very important is making sure that your output is going to the right place. So to do that, you click on that little file name, which is super hard to see, but click on that and it'll ask you where do you want to put it. And I'll pretend that I have to find it. So I'm going to go into this folder. Sure, I'm just going to put it on the root of this folder so it's easier to find. Sure, save. And then I just press the export button. Use maximum render quality. Now, a lot of people will choose that, and then this will change to custom, and that's fine. It changed the preset to custom, but the only thing that's changed is the checkbox. Everything is still good for YouTube. And then we press the export button. And like waiting for a cake to be baked, we go and have a coffee, and then we come back, and what we're left with is our MP4 video. And I'm going to go up to, last but not least, my YouTube channel. And I need you to create one if you don't have one. Go to my channel. I'm going to create a new video, upload a video, and I love YouTube so much. It's so great. There's my master MP4 movie. And then I'm just dragging it up. And while that's happening, I can just grab the URL because it has to do transcoding up on the server. It takes a little bit of time. I can just copy the video link, go over to the assignment, still have it open. Cool. Comments, paste, and that's it. Submit, and you've handed in your homework.